Good morning. Thank you for joining me in this morning mindfulness practice. I've been reading The Power of Awareness, written by Neville Goddard, and this was recommended to me years ago by my mentor, Bob Proctor. And I've been talking about imagination and imagining that you already have your dream goal, you already are what you want to be. You are the person who has achieved your goals. So, what does it even mean? Well, in The Power of Awareness, the second half of the book is called Awakened Imagination. And Neville, in chapter 1 of Awakened Imagination, says, "Who is your imagination?" Certain words in the course of long use gather so many strange connotations that they almost cease to mean anything at all. Such a word is imagination. This word is made to serve all manner of ideas, some of them directly opposed to one another. Fancy, thought, hallucination, suspicion. Indeed, so wide is its use and so varied its meanings, the word imagination has no status or fixed significance. For example, we ask a man to use his imagination, meaning that his present outlook is too restricted and therefore not equal to the task. In the next breath, we tell him that his ideas are pure imagination, thereby implying that his ideas are unsound. We speak of a jealous or suspicious person as a victim of his own imagination, meaning his thoughts are untrue. A minute later, we pay a man the highest tribute by describing him as a man of imagination. Thus, the word imagination has no definite meaning. Even the dictionary gives us no help. It defines imagination as 1, the picturing power or act of the mind, the constructive or creative principle. 2, a phantasm. 3, an irrational notion or belief. 4, planning, plotting, or scheming as involving mental construction. Neville Goddard says, I identify the central figure of the Gospels with human imagination, the power which makes the forgiveness of sins, the achievement of our goals, inevitable. So he says from John 1:3, all things were made by him, and without him was not anything that was made. There is only one thing in the world, imagination, and all our deformations of it. Isaiah 53:3. He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. Imagination is the very gateway of reality. Man, said Blake, is either the ark of God or a phantom of the earth and of the water. Naturally, he is only a natural organ subject to sense. The eternal body of man is the imagination, that is God himself, the divine body. Jesus, we are his members. Neville Goddard writes, I know of no greater and truer definition of the imagination than that of Blake. By imagination, we have the power to be anything we desire to be. There's a quote from Blake from Jerusalem 5:18-20. I rest not from my great task to open the eternal worlds, to open the immortal eyes of man inwards into the worlds of thought, into eternity ever expanding in the bosom of God, the human imagination. By imagination, we have the power to be anything we desire to be. Through imagination, we disarm and transform the violence of the world. Our most intimate as well as our most casual relationships become imaginative as we awaken to the mystery hid from the ages that Christ in us is our imagination. When we realize that only as we live by imagination can we truly be said to live at all. Neville Goddard says, I want this book to be the simplest, clearest, frankest work I have the power to make it, that I may encourage you to function imaginatively, that you may open your immortal eyes inwards into the worlds of thought, where you behold every desire of your heart as ripe grain, white, ready to harvest. John 10:10. I have come that they may have life and that they might have it more abundantly. The abundant life that Christ promised us is ours to experience now, but not until we have the sense of Christ as our imagination can we experience it. Colossians 1:26. The mystery hid from the ages, Christ in you, the hope of glory, is your imagination. This is the mystery which I am ever striving to realize more keenly myself and to urge upon others. Imagination is our Redeemer, the Lord from heaven, born of man but not begotten of man. Every man is Mary, and birth to Christ must give. If the story of the Immaculate Conception and birth of Christ appears irrational to man, it is only because it is misread as biography, history, and cosmology, and the modern explorers of imagination do not help by calling it the unconscious or subconscious mind. Imagination's birth and growth is the gradual transition from a God of tradition to a God of experience. If the birth of Christ in man seems slow, it is only because man is unwilling to let go the comfortable but false anchorage of tradition. When imagination is discovered as the first principle of religion, the stone of literal understanding will have felt the rod of Moses, and like the rock of Zin, issue forth the water of psychological meaning to quench the thirst of humanity, and all who take the proffered cup and live a life according to this truth will transform the water of psychological meaning into the wine of forgiveness. Then, like the Good Samaritan, they will pour it on the wounds of all. Well, this might be something that is hard to understand or might sound blasphemous, but I'm going to continue reading Who is Your Imagination from Neville Goddard. The Son of God is not to be found in history, nor in any external form. He can only be found as the imagination of him in whom his presence becomes manifest. Oh, would thy heart but be a manger for his birth, God would once more become a child on earth. Man is the garden in which this only begotten Son of God sleeps. He awakens the sun by lifting his imagination up to heaven and clothing men in godlike stature. We must go on imagining better than the best we know. Man, in the moment of his awakening to the imaginative life, must meet the test of sonship. In Galatians 1:16, Father, reveal thy Son in me, and it pleased God to reveal his Son in me. The supreme test of sonship is the forgiveness of sin. The test that your imagination is Christ Jesus, the Son of God, is your ability to forgive sin. Sin means missing one's mark in life, falling short of one's ideal, failing to achieve one's aim. Forgiveness means identification of man with his ideal or aim in life. This is the work of awakened imagination, the supreme work, for it tests man's ability to enter into and partake of the nature of his opposite. Joel 3:10 says, "Let the weak man say, I am strong." Reasonably, this is impossible. Only awakened imagination can enter into and partake of the nature of its opposite. This conception of Christ Jesus as human imagination raises these fundamental questions. Is imagination a power sufficient not merely to enable me to assume that I am strong, but is it also of itself capable of executing the idea? Suppose that I desire to be in some other place or situation. Could I, by imagining myself into such a state and place, bring about their physical realization? Suppose I could not afford the journey, and suppose my present social and financial status oppose the idea that I want to realize. Would imagination be sufficient of itself to incarnate these desires? Does imagination comprehend reason? By reason, I mean deductions from the observations of the senses. Does it recognize the external world of facts? In the practical way of everyday life, is imagination a complete guide to behavior? Suppose I am capable of acting with continuous imagination. That is, suppose I am capable of sustaining the feeling of my wish fulfilled. Will my assumption harden into fact? And if it does harden into fact, shall I, on reflection, find that my actions through the period of incubation have been reasonable? Is my imagination a power sufficient not merely to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, but is it also of itself capable of incarnating the idea? After assuming that I am already what I want to be, must I continually guide myself by reasonable ideas and actions in order to bring about the fulfillment of my assumption? Well, Neville says, experience has convinced me that an assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. That continuous imagination is sufficient for all things, and all my reasonable plans and actions will never make up for my lack of continuous imagination. Is it not true that the teachings of the Gospels can only be received in terms of faith, and that the Son of God is constantly looking for signs of faith in people, that is, faith in their own imagination? Is not the promise, believe that ye receive and ye shall receive, the same as imagine that you are and you shall be? Was it not an imaginary state in which Moses endured as seeing him who is invisible? Was it not by the power of his own imagination that he endured? Truth depends upon the intensity of the imagination, not upon external facts. Facts are the fruit bearing witness of the use or misuse of the imagination. Man becomes what he imagines. He has a self-determined history. Neville says, imagination is the way, the truth, the life revealed. We cannot get a hold of truth with the logical mind, where the natural man of sense sees a bud, imagination sees a rose full blown. Truth cannot be accompanied by facts. As we awaken to the imaginative life, we discover that to imagine a thing is to make it so, that a true judgment need not conform to the external reality which it relates. The imaginative man does not deny the reality of the sensuous outer world of becoming, but he knows that it is the inner world of continuous imagination that is the force by which the sensuous outer world of becoming is brought to pass. He sees the outer world and all its happenings as projections of the inner world of imagination. To him, everything is a manifestation of the mental activity which goes on in man's imagination without the sensuous, reasonable man being aware of it. But he realizes that every man must become conscious of this inner activity and see the relationship between the inner the inner causal world of imagination and the sensuous outer world of effects. I'm going to read that sentence again. He realizes that every man must become conscious of this inner activity and see the relationship between the inner causal world of imagination and the sensuous outer world of effects. You're becoming conscious that what you think about is what you bring about. Neville Goddard writes, "It is a marvelous thing to find that you can imagine yourself into the state of your fulfilled desire and escape from the jails which ignorance built." The real man is a magnificent imagination. It is this self that must be awakened. Ephesians 5:14, awake thou that sleepest, and arise from the dead, and Christ shall give thee light. The moment man discovers that his imagination is Christ, he accomplishes acts which on this level can only be called miraculous. But until man has the sense of Christ as his imagination, he will see everything in pure objectivity without any subjective relationship. John 15:16, you did not choose me, I have chosen you. Not realizing that all that he encounters is part of himself, he rebels at the thought that he has chosen the conditions of his life, that they are related by affinity to his own mental activity. Man must firmly come to believe that reality lies within him and not without. Although others have bodies, a life of their own, their reality is rooted in you, ends in you, as yours ends in God. That's a lot to take in. Having been raised Roman Catholic, if I read this 10 years ago, I would have not completely read it. I would have just thought it was blasphemous. But think about how, whatever kind of religion you were raised with, you were taught that God is in everything, that God is in nature, that God created everything, that God is in you. Well, if God is in you, why are you talking that things are impossible, that it's never happening, that it's taking too long, that you're overwhelmed, that everything is happening to you? What if you remember that God is in you, that the words you speak are bringing to life what you're thinking? What are you speaking into form in your life? Consider the thoughts that you think, the words that you use, the actions that you take. Are they godlike? Decide what you want and speak it in the affirmative. Right at the beginning of this chapter, let the weak man say, I am strong. Currently, that could be a lie, but you tell yourself a lie long enough, it becomes truth. Think of how many times in your life you've said, I am so sick and tired of this. Is that what you want to continue to bring into your life? Say to yourself, I am strong, I am healthy, I am happy. Say it with faith. Say it as if you mean it. Say it over and over and over and over until that becomes your reality. Speak into existence that which you desire. Don't look at the outside world and say, I can't because all this is happening. I can't because I need the money. I can't until I have enough time, I have enough money. Say what you want as if it is your current reality, and the power in you will that has been gifted to you by God. You have been gifted with intelligence. You have skills and abilities. You have the ability to think. You have the ability to turn your life into whatever you want. An acorn can only turn into an oak tree. A corn seed a kernel of corn can turn into a stalk of corn and produce more corn, but you, as a divine human creation, can co-create with God whatever you think about, whatever you want, whatever you're willing to work for. See a magnificent goal that you desire and put yourself in the place of it already happening. What would you be talking about? You certainly would not be talking about the lack of your goal, missing it. You'd be so happy, so grateful. It was so wonderful. Speak into existence what you desire. Talk about it. Imagine it as it's already done. Awaken your imagination. Neville says facts are the fruit bearing witness of the use or misuse of the imagination. Man becomes what he imagines. He has a self-determined history. We cannot get a hold of truth with the logical mind. So if you can look at a rosebud and see it as a bud, or you can imagine it as a full-blown rose in bloom. Mark 11:24. Believe that ye receive, and ye shall receive. Joel 3:10. Let the weak man say, I am strong. If you read the Bible every day, you'll read all kinds of passages that tell you, imagine, see it, ask, and believe that it's yours and receive. John 1:3. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything that was made. What is it that you want to create in your life? See it as already done and take action from that place of the goal already being accomplished. Just like if you want to build a house, you don't wave a magic wand and it appears. You design the plans. You decide where are the light fixtures going to be, where are the windows going to be, what does the door look like. You create it in your mind, you design it, and then you build it, then you live in it. Use your imagination to bring into your life what you truly desire, not what the outside circumstances are showing you, because the outside current conditions have arisen because of previous thinking, feeling, and doing. Imagine what you want your life to be. Think from it already accomplished. Practice in your mind already being what you want. Use your imagination for what you do want rather than what you don't want. Create a wonderful day. Thank you for being here. Enjoy your day, and I'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 7. Thank you.